the audio tape right now.
It just started, so we're good to go.
Okay. I want to welcome everyone to our first virtual Action Learning Coach the Coach program. I really need to thank Erin and Cynthia for setting up this webinar experience. This is learning for me. I've done it before, but it was so long ago. This is great experience. So thank you for helping us with that. The discussion will be audio taped and accessible to people in our group for a period of time, so that if you want to re-listen to it, or if for some reason you do miss a session, hopefully we can continue to tape them so that you can hear. I just want to go over the ground rules for our discussion. Let's see. Now, let's see. I'm trying to move the slide ahead.
It's at the top. It says like 01 action learning, and then there's an arrow to the right of that. That's what you push.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, 0.
So see the little right arrow?
Right arrow.
At the very top of the page.
Top of the page.
Yeah, it's right above the PowerPoint. Are you seeing the first? Is everyone seeing the first slide?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some reason I'm frozen.
Okay, I can go ahead and progress it. Let me know if everyone sees the second slide. Can everyone see the second slide now?
What's it say?
No. It should say ground rules, assumptions, and rules. And roles.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yeah. Erin, I think you have to make yourself the presenter again in order to do that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Let me see here. Okay, can everyone see it now?
Yep.
Yes, go for it. Okay. Donna, do you just want to go ahead and let me know when to move the slide forward?
Okay, thank you. I just have a few slides, so most of this is going to be discussion. So hopefully that won't interrupt our discussion much. But I wanted to get us started with, just some ground rules. You had, as a group, identified some ground rules, but for this call, let's also make sure as best you can to limit your background noise so that we can hear you talk. We do expect everyone to participate fully. You did agree to, or at least I asked you to have a journal, keep a journal while you participate in this program. If you have either the journal you received in St. Louis or some other journal that you keep, whatever is useful to you, if you would please have that accessible to yourself during this session. And please, since we can't all see each other, if you would, when you jump in to talk, just give your name, because I'm not sure we all recognize each other's voices. I'm going to have the role of facilitator, and I won't be actually being in the role of an action learning coach. I won't be doing that. For this, it will be a more traditional facilitator role for me. And we'll ask Cynthia and Erin to sort of help me keep the audio tape archives of this call. There are some assumptions that I'd like to remind you of. That my view here is that we are going to be coaching teams, 5 to 7 member teams, using the action learning model. And the other assumption I'm making is that the teams will be working on a real life project within a formal leadership program, leadership development program. Obviously, your real world in some cases don't meet that same assumption. So it's my hope that we can help you transfer any of our discussion and knowledge to your real life world. But I just want you to know that often I am speaking with these assumptions in mind. Does anyone need to add anything at this point?
Donna, this is Carol. I really thought a lot about this, and I'm glad you clarified that. I think that one of the realities for us in this is that our contexts are very different, and I don't know what to do about the fact that they are, and that the context for us learning with you is something that I'm not currently doing, and I'm really trying to figure out how to adapt some of this to what I am doing. So in a sense, we've all got our own challenges as a community of learners here, and our contexts are all different. And I wonder if we could be more transparent about that, and at what point in this, I don't want to derail us, because your assumptions are something that I'm not sure that I'm really going to be able to integrate in anything that I do when I really think about it from a pure perspective. And I don't know if we need to have a sidebar conversation about the difference between the different contexts, like we started online, the whole team being together and working on an issue together. And then there's the issue of people maybe coming into a group where a couple of people are working on a project together, but the teams are actually couples of people working on different projects. And then you've got the team, like in the National Leadership Institute, where every single person's got their own challenge. And so the challenge, I think, is that we might not all be able to construct the pure everybody working on one project team. And I'm needing to get something out of this that's adaptable to different situations. So I'm just going to toss that.
Carol, I hear you, and being right in the middle of the study, the CDC study, where I'm talking to the directors of the 14 CDC-funded institutes, I'm learning that everyone has a different model for the project work. Let us start out with this my view and help each other transfer and say, okay, what does this mean for me through our discussion? I think that's the only way, because everyone is so different. So is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. And Erin, would you, this segues nicely into the next slide. Erin, if you would move us forward. So context matters.
I'm impressed.
So right on target. Can everyone hear okay still?
Yep.
There's a lot of echo.
And there's delay, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, guys, this is Cynthia. One of the things that happens is that some of you, when you logged in, went ahead and logged in through your computer, and so you have both your computer microphone and you're using the phone, and that gives us a lot of feedback, and I have no idea who's doing both of those things, but we could either try to fix it now or we could do it next time. It's up to you guys.
Good point, Cynthia. If you have both your phone on and your computer, maybe you can just choose your computer to get rid of the echo.
Or mute your computer.
Okay. Great. Okay, so let me move on. Carol, very nice introduction to this slide that I think context really matters for action learning. And it's because action learning is all about people building skills within their context, their world. that, of course, context matters in all the programs we develop, but it's very important in action learning. And one of the pieces is, as Carol just pointed out, my very first point, which is P, timeline. And P means the formal program in which you are working. So the project structure, the way your program is structured impacts what kind of responsibilities you have as a coach, what outcomes you have, how much time you have, which really influences what you're able to do and what's the best way to be a coach. So thank you, Carol. I think that you said it nicer than I did, but brings us to that first point. I'll just point out, I don't need to read this all to you, but I'll point out one or two others and then have you reflect your thoughts on context as it relates to you and your world. I'll just point out, of course, industry matters. A public health world versus a world coaching a team with a more competitive nature will influence how you coach the team as well. So it's important you understand a little bit about the industry or where the people are coming from that are on your team. The third point that I'll make before I'm quiet on this is the senior versus emerging leader membership of the team. I don't have a lot to base this on just yet, but there seems to be a difference in how receptive people are to engage in an action learning developmental experience, being in a very senior action-oriented position versus maybe an emerging leader who might be more open to slowing down. Of course, everyone's different, but you need to understand where people are and where you are, what the program dictates to you. So why don't I be quiet and let you comment on how context is going to matter in your world as a coach. Anyone?
Well, this is Doyle. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I have two approaches to it, and I'm still working through where I'm going to end up. The first one, of course, is that I sort of direct the Leadership Institute here at Oklahoma, and so within that context, we have projects that are expected of the fellows that are participating. And so one of the contexts would be in facilitating or coaching those groups, and they're generally speaking 4 to 5 in a group. The second context is in sort of a transformational thing that I'm working on because we're getting some new leadership within the department. We got new commissioners coming in, and there's a possibility.
Doyle, I've lost you.
You've lost me coming in, and there's a possibility. You've lost me.
I'm not hearing all your words.
Okay.
Am I the only one having that problem?
Okay. Well, I'm getting delayed from my own words, so I don't know what else to do with it. I don't have a sound.
Hey, guys, this is Cynthia, okay? I need I need everybody to look at the participant panel. I need everybody to look at the participant panel and see what's happening is while I'm talking, other people's little headsets are lighting up. And so you need to use that little mute button that's at the bottom of the participant button. So if you click mute, just like you see Magda has a little red X by her phone right now, if everybody will do that when they're not talking, then we'll get rid of the echo.
Thanks for giving me brownie points.
Now there's a big echo. Hello?
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 Cynthia, can you give us any more guidance?
Cynthia doesn't have a phone or anything by her name now.
Yeah.
This is Raquel, and my button won't check. But I'm muting my phone when I'm not.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
There's a big
Okay, so
delay.
guys, I thought that would work, but I think we need to get rid of the people that are doing the thing through their computer, because what's happening is when Donna is talking, I'm seeing like Carol's headset. Like right now, I'm talking, and Carol and Donna's headsets are also reverberating, which is where we're getting the echo because they're doing it through the computer. So
Should we log out?
yeah, log out, log back in, and this time, when that little dialog box comes up that says "Join through my computer," just hit the X up in the right-hand corner to get rid of that, and then dial in on your phone.
Okay, okay. I'll do that.
And Cynthia, if you click on the audio button,
Yeah.
tell you which way you're communicating, and that's very revealing.
Correct.
So if you don't know what you're doing, it's so smart it'll figure out for you. Just click on where it says audio next to the mute button, and it'll tell you which one you're in on or both. Cynthia, I was curious, as long as we have this technology time, can you also tell us if we're able to chat?
You are able to chat.
If I click on the chat area, nothing happens, so I was curious about that.
Well, click it again. Like double-click it.
I double-click it. I'll even double-click it.
And then there should be
Okay.
a chat thing. And the box that you type in is at the very bottom.
All right, I'll try again. Thanks.
And I'll go ahead and send it to all panelists. So do you see my little message? Anyone? You first have to double-click on chat to make the
try it again.
participant.
All right, Carol's coming in. I can see that.
Yeah, you're looking at the panelist, not the chat box. You're looking at the participants.
I just sent a little note to everyone as well. And I see the one that Erin says hello, and I just said, I'm chatting, it is messy. So it's a way for us to check in with each other.
Right.
Okay, it's given that we've got this tech time, any other tech questions, I figure we should use you to our full advantage, Cynthia and Erin.
Hopefully Donna will find her way back in.
Yes, she will. Well, you know, as a team, I also am curious, how many of you have not used the WebEx system before, that this is the first time? And we could practice by saying, you know, yes, and on that. So I'm just curious about people's tech issues.
This is Raquel, and this is the first time I've used this. I've used WebEx. I've used another one, but this is the first time.
Through the computer, but I don't see my phone up.
Carol, you're now call-in user number 11. Talk again and you'll see it light up.
Okay. I'm calling you, okay, it's not my name.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because you didn't put the attendee ID number in.
Yeah, I did.
You did?
Yep.
But we don't have feedback.
Are we glad?
So we solved that.
Yeah, I put 937 in, which is the attendee ID number.
Huh. Don't know about that one. We'll know it's you.
Okay. So we wait for Donna to come back in.
Right.
Okay.
While she was gone, Magda was doing a little voting exercise. At the bottom of the participant panel, there's a hand and a green check mark for yes and a red X for no. She was asking how many people that this was the first time that you used WebEx. And so she wanted you to put yes if it was or no if it's not.
So
Look at all those.
The X's that people have used means that you've not done this before and we're all on a learning curve, or does the X's mean that you have done it before? I actually was just saying if anybody said that this was their first time, they should say yes, and that was my actual question, Cynthia.
Oh, okay.
I thought it doesn't matter. I was just getting us to practice so that we don't have this dead technology time. And as learners, I'm just really struck about how and part of my need to do more is learn to be more patient and live with silence. I'm really curious about how we can max out our time together. And so I thought the more you practice with your buttons, you know, the easier it gets the next time.
Good strategy.
So a green check means you've done it before.
Well,
unvote yourselves because Donna's back and we're back to the main game.
A green check does not mean that you're competent. Because I would check because I have done it before, but it's been quite some time. So my apologies for the delays. Although, Magda, as we get to some of the skills needed by an action learning coach, you might have seen on the list that I sent you, patience is one needed. So we were just testing your patience. Again, sorry for that. Is everyone on?
I think everyone's on, and it sounds so much better on my end.
Okay.
Yeah, here too.
Here too.
Huge improvement.
Wonderful. I think, would someone capture that in their learning journals? Lessons learned. Okay. Well, Carol brought up a very good point about context matters in her world, and how can she apply some of the stuff from our discussions to her real world context, because it's different, obviously, than what I said that I was speaking from. In the very first point on the slide, context matters, is about the P, which comes from the work of Reg Revens. If you've read any of the action learning work, he is sort of the father, some would say, of action learning. This notion of P being program material. So the program means a lot. And I think, Doyle, you were sharing how this relates, how context relates to your ability to be a coach. So can you sort of repeat, if you will, what you were saying?
Well, yeah, in listening, I'm just wondering if I understood the question in the context. Because I was thinking in terms of application, what I learned and how that I share that in what my goals or objectives are with regard to what's happening within our agency now, Department of Health. And there are two contexts, and they're both sort of similar, and I'm just wondering if I understood what you meant by getting the structure of the context properly. It's within the Department of Health. One is within the Leadership Institute and working with the fellows, the scholars, the emerging leaders in the working out of their projects as a coach, and there are 5 different groups doing 5 different projects. Or the other context is in the work that I'm about to do in terms of sort of a transformational change type paradigm, because we have some new leadership coming in. We got new commissioners doing at the end of the month, and there'll be some transformation and changes with regard to how he sees things, and then some other leadership that might be changing too. So I'm not sure that's even in the ballpark in terms of what you're asking for, but that's the context in which I'm seeing the learning that I'll be doing and the action learning that I'll also be doing as I work with these two groups.
Yeah, I think, go ahead, next person.
I don't know whether that's helpful or not.
Yes, yes. I think what I would say is, and this is Donna speaking, that context matters from 2 points of view, if not more. One is the context in which you as the coach work, and that's where you have all these limitations or barriers around the project structure for your leadership program, let's say, with those fellow groups that you work, or whether you're working in an organization. The other place that context matters is with the team that you're working with, those members, their context. So who else wants to add in here?
This is Gail Gentling from Minnesota.
Hi, Gail.
And like Carol and Doyle, I'll be really learning how to do this and practicing this with my work team at my regular job, because our leadership development program won't start again until probably after these phone calls and our, experience with you is over.
Okay.
So again, like others, I'll be needing to pretty seriously adapt what we're learning to a daily work setting.
Okay.
This is Raquel, and I am in the sort of fortunate, perhaps, position that I have 2 teams just launching in our BERLA program, and so what I'm trying to figure out is how I engage them to commit to being involved in this action learning process as well as their projects. So
great.
I'm trying to figure that out and see if we can get at least one of them to agree to a more in-depth approach.
I think no matter what team you are working with as a coach, and it sounds like, all of our teams will be different, whether they're enrolled in a formal program or if it's a work team that you've gotten to agree to take on an action learning approach within your agency. You must, as a coach, understand going in some about their world, because that's what they're doing. They're trying to apply and build skills in their world. So does anyone else have anything else to add here? Okay. Erin, do you want to go to the next slide? Thank you. So I think Carol alluded to this in some of her comments, although I'm not sure, given our technical problems, if everyone heard her. But thanks to Jeff in Illinois and Cynthia, we have a NING site set up for the network, the National Public Health Leadership Development Network. And within that site, we have a group, an action learning group for all of us, and I know at least 8 of us have are on that. I encourage you to join us if you haven't signed up for that little group yet. But within that, our little group, we've got a dialogue going on, and Carol did mention about how the role of the coach may be different depending on the structure of the program and the intended outcomes. So one of the things you need to do is understand your responsibilities and what your intended outcomes are for that team before you get started. So when you're working, Raquel, you're working with a new group, you said, soon. And one of the things you'd want to do is understand what are the outcomes that you are hoping for with that team, and what is your responsibility based on the design of the leadership program. Is one of your responsibilities to assure that content from the retreats, let's say, if there are formal retreats or new content being shared with participants, is it your role as the coach to help the scholars or participants integrate that new content into their real project? If so, how much of that content do you need to know? Can you be airdropped into a program? So some of you may be thinking, and I know Ken, we had this discussion, thinking of using outside coaches or alumni or people who are not part of your staff as coaches. How much of the content of your program are you going to help them understand so that they're able to provide this role if they're helping to bridge? One of the other major roles, and I just picked a few that are really resonate with me, you are the mirror for that team. Just as any sports team would have a coach that looks at the team while they're working or on the field, let's say, that is you in this role. And I think that's important when we talk about peer coaching, Carol, or Magda. Someone mentioned that on our Ning site. It is difficult, although there are certainly benefits of peer coaching, but it is difficult for someone who is part of the team to actually pull themselves away enough to see the process of the whole team working. And I'll pick one other responsibility, and then I'll just let you share what you think are the responsibilities and role of a coach. I feel that it is important for the coach to help the team set up a structure for learning. And this comes at the beginning of the meeting, and then I plan for our next coaching discussion to be just focused on this. You know, what is the structure, what are structures for learning, and how can you help set up the action learning process at the very beginning. But I believe that that is the coach that helps the team do that. So let me stop here and ask if you have questions about what I've listed on the slide, or if you want to share what your thinking is at this point about the role and responsibility of an action learning team coach.
This is Magda.
Great.
I actually have a clarity question versus a reflection. In the readings by Marzick and O'Neill, there was some shorthand used, some formulaic shorthand about defining about what learning is, that talked about L equals P plus Q plus I. And in that shorthand, P stood for programmed knowledge from the past. Can I assume that when you talk about your P and your taxonomy during our training, that the P you're talking about is project learning, or what the initiative is that the team is working on, or the problem that they're going to focus around to find solutions, and not the P from the articles we've read?
Thank you, Magda. The way I'm using P is using it as, and again, everyone, Marzick and O'Neill expand the definition, but I'm using P as program content. So in your on-site retreats, you may have a session on conflict resolution as one of your sessions. And so if you see my first bullet here that says assure or assist in the application of new P learnings, that's, I mean, from your session on conflict. Is it my role as a coach to help the scholars apply that learning to their project, to their real work, which is the project?
So to be a catalytic converter.
Yes. That your role, it brings up a lot of questions. If your role is to help integrate all of the content and learnings that take place in on-sites or even virtual discussions, you need to, you have the question, how much do I need to understand about that program content? Okay, I'll use an example. You know that I'm a coach for one of the Ladder to Leadership programs. I'm an outside coach. I'm not part of the formal on-site trainings. And there will be exercises and self-assessment instruments that the participants get and work on during their on-site meetings. If I don't understand what those are, I have a hard time in, helping them apply it during their project work.
This is really helpful because one of the filters that I'm listening through in the context is what is realistic to expect of our extended faculty and folks that work with teams, and so the idea that you need to find someone who's going to be an action learning team coach who is, if they're not going to know the entire curriculum or be able to be on site, needs to be at a higher level of understanding or a willingness to at least know what others are learning, which requires just pragmatically a very different level of investment up front of readiness for that team coach to be effective. So I'm just, one of the things that my reflection as I've been reading this material and listening to you is that my anxiety level tends to get higher because what I would really love to happen feels that much less attainable the more expectation there is of the coach. So one is an observation, and then I just thought I'd give my reflection, which is, how realistic is this?
Magda, this is great because when I was going through some of the training at the Center for Creative Leadership for their action learning coaching, I had the same response that, oh my gosh, this is like rocket science. I'm, you know, so much to think about. And eventually you come to saying, relying a lot on your own gut. So while I'm making it perhaps rocket science or unattainable, eventually through all of this, you know, there will be things that you can pull out that are useful, I hope, and not worrisome.
Well, then I need to follow up with two quickies, and then I'll listen into others' reflections. One is the degree to which, if this is the Cadillac, one can drive a Yugo. Or a less sophisticated, maybe put it in real world terms, if this is the Prius, to what degree could one be settling for something a little less? And do we have the latitude to discern and pick and choose from the model that which is doable, and to what degree does the integrity of action learning coaching get sustained? So that's a reflection to come back overall. And the second is, I want to clarify that I don't think that this is rocket science. I just think that it's very comprehensive, and it has a lot of expectation. So if at the end of the day you say, okay, well, you got to rely on your gut, I'm concerned that people will go to gut first and not do the hard discipline to bring all that you're bringing forth today. So two reflections for future conversation, perhaps.
I want to stress that what I think is that we need to be deliberate and that we don't just nail on a project assignment to our programs because we know that people learn while they do, adults learn while they work. Of course, they do. But I think we just need to know what our limits are in our program, and then what are some of the best practices and at what level can we do them. I would say if you're going to have an action learning coach, if you are going to be an action learning coach for a team, you need to understand what they're going through in the rest of the program so that you can help them make sense of that and help them use it for their project, because otherwise what is the point of the project? Anyway, go ahead.
Well, this is Ken. While I agree with that, there is also some intrinsic value in just doing a project even without coaching as a team. So there is value there, but I agree it would be much superior in the way we were talking about it.
I think there's value, obviously. I mean, there's value in doing a project, but it's people do lots of projects at work.
Right, but this is as a team, and I think that using those principles has value already. But I don't want to quibble about it because I agree with what you said.
Yeah, actually, Ken, that's it's a good point, because if you remember from our session at the NLN, and then if you've had a chance to flip through Victoria Marsick and Judith's book, you'll see their little pyramid, which I showed on a slide very quickly, on learning. And obviously, when you put people together in a team, one of the things they'll learn is they'll learn about the teammates, and that's very valuable. We know how valuable social networking is to becoming a leader. But do we want to maximize their learning, and then how do we do that? Good.
Yeah.
I'm doing way too much talking, which is always part of my problem, so let me shut up. Who else?
Hi, this is Carol. I agree. This is a good conversation, and I'm enjoying it. And one of the things that I think I'm learning is in my own work with the National Leadership Institute, and I'm struggling with, is that I think there's two things going on as people work together in a team, whether they're bringing in their own challenge or they're working as a team on one, although I have less experience with that, I'm realizing, with the leadership development setup. I think that what I'm finding is that people are really wanting to, in a sense, give each other peer consultation about their problem and what they do about it and the results they get. So it's more on the challenge of the doing and giving consultation and advice about, well, I know my board does this, or I recommend you read that, or whatever. There's a lot of consultation around that. But what I think is lacking, and I think that's why the structure of setup is important, is that what's the challenge of the learning that you want to get from this? It's almost like having to really separate the doing, the action, the results, from what do you want to learn about the process or the people. And I'm wondering, as we think about this, when you talk about structure and setup, if we really have to almost separate those things a little bit, because people are they zero into the actions and the results that they need to get rather than what they want to learn, and be clear about what they want to learn and consider that to be as important of a challenge to them as the results they want to get. So part of it is helping people separate those and understand what they can get out of working together, whether or not they're working on one thing together or they're going to go back and work with another group. And that, I think that distinction, there's this action-reflection cycle, but the action and the reflection are very important, but there's the I'm beginning to think in my mind that there's the doing and the learning.
Yeah,
and I'm having a hard time getting people to not just use the group as peer consultants around the doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is Ken. Isn't that really the key role of the action learning coach?
Right. So the structure and the setup around how they think about their challenges at the very beginning are important. So the way you frame this at the very beginning is really important, and then how you suggest they become clear about that and articulate that clearly, and others understand, and then somehow or another in the structure of the meeting or the time you spend together or the time an individual, in our cases, has airtime to talk about what they're doing with their challenge, and then, ask questions, or the others give advice or ask questions. The giving advice is what happens more easily. You have to set up a framework for we're having to set up a framework for how they spend time together so that both can happen. So you're not observing so much and intervening like is stated in the chapter that we read, but you're actually helping them set up a process where they can almost be action learning coaches for each other. That's what our setup is like. And I would add that to this roles and responsibilities is maybe one of the other things is to help the individuals in whatever team setup you've got, in a sense, almost become action learning coaches themselves, or as Maggie would say, peer coaches. That is really what we're doing in the National Leadership Institute, is we're guiding them to almost work ourselves out of a job in some way.
If you notice, Carol, you are setting me up. This is wonderful. If you notice, the last bullet point on that slide says work yourself out of a job. And I believe that one of the difficulties of this is, what does success look like for an action learning coach? How do I know? I've worked with this team. How do I know whether I've been successful? And one of my indicators is that if I do not see the ability of team members to ask, much deeper questions than, oh, what did you learn, of their teammates, if I don't see that they're now using some of the tools that I shared with them, of course we'll get into that later in the year, some of the tools that we can use. If I am not working myself out of a job, then I do not believe I've been successful. Now others, you will find action learning coach models, vary. There's a spectrum or continuum of what is expected. Some believe that they're just there to help the team learn during that one-time project event. I happen to believe that one of my roles is to help them learn how to learn while they're doing real work. So that, I try to say, well, what are indicators of success then? But that fits into what you were just saying, Carol. Great. Others?
Well, I like the part that Carol mentioned about helping the teams to, she may not have said it this way, but it's what I heard, helping the teams to balance. And she mentioned a couple of them, task and process, action and reflection, work and learning, all that. So it would seem to me that one of the roles of the coach would be to help the teams to find that balance, to find that tension.
This is Raquel. It sort of made me think about the one article, the Coaching via Action Learning, where they laid out kind of what you do, and that second step about determining which leadership competencies each member wants to work on and then posting them as a reminder. I sort of wondered about, well, how would you do that? But I see that in the context of Leadership Institute, that we do a lot of work trying to help people identify what competencies and what they want to work on. And if that were visible and sort of a part of the setup of their action learning projects, and it was visible, then it would be a way to help balance the learning and the action and the,
Thank you. Anyone else have a thought about this? Well, let me share one of the other tensions for a coach that comes into play as far as roles and responsibilities. You'll see on the right-hand side my second bullet, share just-in-time training as needed. This is, I find, one of the biggest tensions for an action learning coach. So you're working with a team, let's say, and this is actually a real-life example, not one of my teams, but another team colleague of mine who's coaching a team. The team is, every time she meets with the team just flounders around. There's the level of skill in meeting management, just something as simple as, or not simple, but the skills around how to run a meeting. This team doesn't seem to have. And so she is having a hard time. So the question arises, do I let them struggle with this and then ask them to reflect, pose a question that helps them reflect on how they're using their meeting time and maybe they come up with some learning there. Or do I could do that, I could ask them a reflective question, but do I act as a trainer or facilitator or teacher at this moment? So let me throw that out to you. What do you think of that dilemma, and using your paradigm of a coach, what would you do? Or have you been in that spot before?
Well, at least from my little I've read, this is Ken, I would say that the authors were espousing that you watch and listen and then reflect on it with the group at the end, rather than intervene and train.
Yeah, this is a big dilemma as to how far you go, and it really depends a lot sometimes on context. If your program being your institute or your situation allows you only to work with the team for 3 months, let's say, a coach tends to jump in a lot more and may do some of that training to get them moving. It's just you're helping them build meeting skills so that they become a higher performing team the next time they do this. The other extreme being let them struggle, and then your role is just to mirror for them what they've been doing, allow them to see or pull out their learnings. I actually am going with the model of let them struggle for a while, let them learn, but if I really think a tool or some kind of little brief training, not that I'm their trainer, but pulling something from the program on-site meeting they had or reminding them of something, if I need to do that, I'm going to do it. But it's a dilemma.
Yeah, this is Ken. Actually doing the training really would blur that coaching role, but yeah, perhaps providing a reading or something wouldn't as much.
Yeah, it's a real dilemma. How much do you let them struggle? Where's the learning? Of course, they're going to learn something if you let them struggle and let them pull out the lessons, but it's a tough one. Okay, does anyone else have any thoughts? Have you given much thought as to the role and responsibility of a coach in your context or your view of the world?
This is Magda. I absolutely agree that tension is palpable. I also think that that's the world of anyone who does a combination of facilitating, teaching, coaching, and so I go back to your third bullet, which is a sure team structure for learning and high performance team action. If it's clear up front that there is not a single monotone role that the coach will take on of the team, but it could be clear up front that there may be times when the coach makes the choice to be able to switch roles. And if you practice that and even have a high sign or a way to say, you know, I'm going to step out from being the observer or the facilitator into a teaching moment here, I'm going to take that prerogative. I think that can work if it's done judiciously, and if in fact that's part of the spectrum of expectations that the team has of the coach, and that the coach actually practices well and clearly, even to the degree of having a different hat that you put on that hat. But I think this intentionality will allow the versatility of role to seize the moment.
I love that with the different hat, and I agree totally with your comments. It's a slippery slope. You need to be very careful because you don't want to be seen. The team will start looking at you as, you know, like, can you save us? Can you help us? Which is, you have to be very careful. One of the things often that occurs when you work with a team, and again, we're going to talk about the first team meeting, how to set that up and what you might expect from that in our next time we talk. But many teams have trouble coming up with team learning goals. As Raquel mentioned, they often can identify what individual learning goals they might have, but they have trouble the first time you get together in an action learning setting coming up, what do we want to learn as a team? That's something you might need to help them with early in the meeting. What do we want? And if we want to become a high performance team, and here we are struggling 3/4 of our time during the year, you might want the coach to intervene and put on that different hat. Let's go to the next slide, which Magda, you helped link, and that is the early agreements that a coach needs to have with the team. This is one of the coaching tools that we have, one of the tactics. Again, we'll talk more about that next time, but one of the things you're going to do is set up these agreements in the structure. The other tactics are pretty obvious. We've heard them all along. A coach uses questioning, listening, reflective practice at a higher level than we typically have or use. Typically, we might ask a question in a peer learning circle or any group. Okay, take a moment. What did you learn? The action learning coach is going to take you to a deeper level. Not only what did you learn, but how did you feel about that? Why did you do it that way? So bringing you to a deeper level of understanding as to why your group decided whatever they decided at a decision point or whatever. The last bullet on that, on this slide, the JIT stands for just in time. Using tools is another tactic we had, and we'll have a toolkit. Actually, we'll talk about what kind of tools can a coach use for learning or team performance, or you may have many tools, I'm sure, that we can talk about later. Does anyone want to add to what kind of tactics an action learning coach uses? Okay. Well, let's move on to the next slide, which is my last slide. And I sent you a long list. I was trying to develop sort of an assessment. I know it needs a little work, so forgive me if it was a little hard to fill out. But I was trying to come up with a list of skills and abilities that are needed by an action learning coach, as well as what kind of knowledge you might need going into working with the team. So I asked you, before we go into this, I asked you to reflect on, let's see, what did I ask you to do? Reflect on your thoughts about action learning before you filled out this instrument and then after. So if there's anyone that's willing to share their reflection before they filled out this instrument, and after, before and after. Anyone want to share if their opinion changed, or anyone do the reflection?
Yeah, I did it, and I really appreciated the depth and the scope of the skills and knowledge that you put here, Donna. And it made me think a little bit more about bringing a lot of these skills together and which ones I feel like I have more experience with and which ones I don't. And it added complexity to my thinking about the role, you know. But I thought it was good. It was good. It was helpful, and it's almost like if all of these are the knowledge and the skills that we need, this could be a whole year program. You know, it's good at all these things. You know, some of them are very specific to a particular leadership program, and then others are about, you know, having good conflict resolution skills or project management tools, team performance. We've all got bits of that, but the issue is how expert are we in them as we work with someone that has a particular issue and problem. But I thought they were good.
Good.
Reflective. And I felt that it helped me to see that I have more learning to do. I have some strengths, but it helped me to see a little bit more about what I need to work on and develop.
Okay, great.
Donna, this is Cynthia.
Yeah.
One of the things that this self-assessment caused me to reflect on was a conversation that you and I had earlier this year, and that had to do with the knowledge areas that you have on here. It's important that you have knowledge of the content, in other words, the curriculum that you're asking the team to apply to their project or issue. But you don't necessarily have to have a lot of technical knowledge about their topic or issue. In fact, in some instances, it might be better if you don't, because then you're tempted to constantly keep taking off your action learning coach hat because you're a content expert in what they're doing and you want to spend all your time teaching. So in some ways, this is kind of interesting because I know many times in our programs, we try to assign people to a team because they're an expert on what the team is working on. And when it comes to action learning, that's probably not the best idea. At least that was my reflection on that. And be interested in other people's ideas on that.
Yeah, I would agree. This is Ken.
And this is Gail. I took the self-assessment as well, and having never been through an action coaching training session or experienced it, it was really hard for me to know how to assess myself with these things and whether or not my assessment is one that would really reflect skills with regard to action learning or not. I found myself saying that every single one of these I need to do more often. And I'm going, I don't know about that. But, how realistic is that was my question. And I'm very interested, after I have more experience with this, to go back and do it again, just to sort of see if the context that I experience in learning action learning coaching would really help me do a better job of assessing my skills for that particular kind of activity.
Gail, that's a very good point. And I think I made this point at the NLN meeting, that it is the doing of action learning coaching that really brings it to life, and where you can see where your own strengths or needs play out. So for instance, if I had made this list up prior to the several experiences I've had now with coaching a team, I probably would not have put the third thing, able to attend to details and observe for long periods of time. I wouldn't have thought of that. But now, having been with teams for several months, I realize that my own, if you've ever taken Change Style Indicator, my own need and interest in being a starter-upper, an originator, versus sitting for a long period of time with a group is a real challenge for me now with these teams that go for 16 months in this case. And so I prefer to get things started and, let them go from there. But you're right. It's while you're doing this that you'll see maybe some of your own needs and skills play out. Regarding Cynthia's comment about how much knowledge do you need and what kind of knowledge, again, also having the experience of no knowledge of the industry, working with a team of bankers and other business people on a team, that was difficult for me with just terminology or lack of knowledge of some basic terminology that they were using. And then having experienced coaching a team that I thought I was an expert in, some public health area, I was biting my tongue, really wanting to jump in who else took this and had some?
Donna, this is Ken. Don't you think there's a difference there, that having knowledge of the industry or the environment helps, and maybe having too much knowledge about the specific problem can get in the way?
Oh, yeah. So you could have someone with knowledge. They're a public health professional, and they work in the area of AIDS, but the team they're helping to coach is, you know, I don't know, something totally, you know, not connected with HIV, and that would be fine. Or I think that the tension is to jump in because you feel like you're an expert, especially if you think the team is going down the wrong road because of your expertise.
Right.
But you do need to know a little bit, enough so that you're not lost in the acronyms in the context. Good.
This is Magda. I really appreciate that, and I was going to offer 3 reflections.
Okay.
The first had to do with what comes first. I tend to think that knowledge comes before skills, abilities, needs. And in other words, I'm curious if you were intentional about having the knowledge come as the second group of assessment. Because I was trying to figure out, in terms of getting ready to be an action learning coach, would I want to make sure that my knowledge base around is clear, particularly around learning styles, management tools, conflict, team, that sort of broader context. So one I kept thinking is that I wanted the knowledge to come first, because that would, and I wasn't sure if that was helpful to put one, if there was an ordering that might be useful. So that was one sort of tension between knowledge versus skills.
I was, I'll have to say I was not intentional. This was just how the list came to me. But you have to become an effective action learning coach, you need some basic behaviors and skills just as part of your makeup. You know, if you have a very, very high need, just because of who you are, for attention or affection, it might be very difficult for you to be an action learning coach. So I wasn't saying one comes before the other. They all just, you have to see where you are and what your own needs are, and what your needs are regarding that team. What knowledge do you need? What program information do you need? So I don't know. What do other people think?
Hey, Donna.
Yeah.
It's Cynthia. The facilitator in me is wondering, there's a few people we haven't heard from today. So
very good.
I wanted to invite Brandon and Aaron and Dwight to speak up if they're there.
Right. And towards that, Carol, I will defer my other 2 reflections.
Thank you. Yeah, the facilitators always want everyone to speak, and I'm going to talk again later. Well, I think I already shared one of the things that we can use for that is that Fist of 5 tool helps out in these kind of settings, but not here where we can't see our fist. So, Brandon, do you have anything that you want to add to the whole discussion?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Welcome.
I did do the assessment, and thinking about your questions before and after. Before I was, I know a little about action learning, what we learned at NLN, the call we had with you, and then after I took it, I thought about it a little more just by as you were talking about the skills, abilities, knowledge. So I knew a little bit more, and then what I went to was thinking about recruiting action learning coaches in our institute to do, you know, the project, be a project coach. And I thought about trying to find people with these, and to me, when I thought about how would we find out if a coach actually had these skills, could do the coaching for our institute, how would we know that? It would be intimidating to me to say, you know, look at this, do you have these things, and then scare them away. So it's more of us trying to figure out, would they be a good coach just from us knowing them? So it's hard for me when to think about an institute, core faculty that Magda and I have very small, so we would have to go outside, look for coaches to do this for some of our teams. So to me, thinking about, do the people we know have these abilities, the knowledge and skills, or do we have to give that to them before they can actually be, the coach for us? So thinking about Magda and I having to take this further to coach them as well after we go through this and learn a little bit more.
Thank you. I know Dwight had mentioned that he would be on the call but would be more of a fly on the wall for this one, and I asked him to jump in as he felt he could. So I won't pick on him, but are there other people who haven't had a chance to? Erin, how about Erin? Is there something you want to add or a thought?
Well, there's nothing that I really want to add too much. What Gail had said earlier, I kind of felt similar to her feelings about all this. The reflection before, I really didn't know what to think or what to say. I had kind of thought about what we did at NLN. This is such a big learning experience for me, so I'm trying to just kind of move along the journey a little more and kind of just take it all in and see how once we start with our teams in K-Philly, and actually once I jump into my role, I think I'm going to have a lot more to add and a lot more to say about this whole learning process. So.
Okay, very good. Great. Okay. Well, we just have probably 10 or 12 minutes left here. So is there someone that would like to pose a question to the group that we can reflect on in our journals, and then for those who feel comfortable sharing their reflection? I'll give you a minute to jot down some questions, and then if someone wants to throw one out, that would be good. So let's take a minute to think of a question or questions. I can't tell if I've given you a full minute or not, but let me ask, how many questions were you able to come up with in that time? Anyone?
One.
One, okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, two.
Okay. The reason why I asked, and of course it was only 1 minute, if that I gave you, this is an area that I've struggled with when I coach a team regarding questions. Because you have so little time with the team, you want to make your question important if you interrupt them or if you ask them to reflect at the end or at the beginning. And so I often go to meetings with a list of like 30 questions, and very often I don't ask any of them. I've changed my question by the time I get there. But it'll be interesting as you work with a team for you to reflect on this skill that we need to develop, on picking the right question and giving it to the team or asking the team at the right time. So I just wanted to see where you were on that. Is there anyone that wants to share their question? Don't worry if you don't think, it can be anything.
Well, the two I came up with are the standard ones that you usually ask at the end of an exercise or a period such as this, and what have we done well in this last hour and a half, and what could we have done better?
Okay, So well, let's use that. Thank you. If you would take a moment to reflect on that double-parted question. What did we do well? What is one thing we could do better for the next time? So please take 2 minutes. Thank you, Doyle.
Well,
Okay. I hope that gave everyone some time to jot down 1 or 2 points. What I'm going to do is just ask everyone to share what they want to share from that reflection. And then after that, we'll just ask others if they had identified a question. We won't answer the question, but just to see the types of questions people were thinking of that they might pose to the group. We'll just share any of those if you want to just share what you were thinking. Okay, so forgive me, I'm just going to pick from our list here for in the order on our participant list. Erin, did you have a thought to that question that Doyle posed?
Well, for me, it was the whole technical part of it. I felt like there was some time wasted in the beginning. It's tough when we're using new technology, but I thought as a group, everyone was very patient, and we came together, we worked together, and we figured it out, and it transitioned smoothly after that. So I'm hoping that this WebEx was great for everyone, and I hope we can use it again and be better at it next time and really benefit from it more next time.
Thank you. Brandon, a thought based on that question?
Yeah, thought what we did well. I thought there was very good discussion, and then I did have good use of technology. I think using technology like this makes it more inviting for everyone to discuss, volunteer, and kind of talk a little bit more, and it's good to see slides and that type of thing. So what could we do better? Personally, I wrote something personally down as what I could do better. I think it was I didn't fully follow the ground rule of no multitasking.
Okay.
So I did some multitasking during the call. So that was one thing personally that I could do better. So that's what I wrote down.
Okay, very good. Thank you for being open about that. Carol?
Yeah, I think that we had an opportunity to share our perspectives and some of our experience and questions text that I think might be good for us to actually have a framework for writing down in our group page, because I think that I'm going to be always looking at how to apply this to the situations I'm in right now. So I'm wondering what we could do better about understanding those contexts, so both in terms of what we're currently in and what we're hoping to do, so that as we talk, I know that Brendan and Magda, for example, are thinking about a model where they're actually selecting people and training them to be coaches. I'm in a situation where I am a coach in something very different than this, and just learning a little bit more about each other's context as we learn some of the ideals might be helpful, and I'm trying to think about how we might do that so we learn about each other more. What to do with it.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Cynthia?
I always find, I had to unmute, I'm sorry. Okay. I always find conversations with my peers so invigorating, and I guess my largest reflection about the process here is learning from everybody else in the group and listening to the, and you know, their individual takes or analysis on the article and the self-assessment and that type of thing. And I'd like to do more of that. I'd really like to encourage everybody to do more on the Ning site as well. I mean, we've started some really good conversation there, and I think we could do more of that. One of the things that Carol just said, an idea that I wrote down early in the call, was that I'd like to start a discussion thread on there where we talk about how we're planning to use this growth opportunity. So whether we are a coach or we're selecting other people to be coaches, or, you know, that whole type of thing, which would help us understand the context in which we're applying this. So, but the call has been good for me. It's been intellectually stimulating, and I'm excited about this process. So,
great, thank you. Doyle?
Yeah, I'd pretty much could parrot what's already been said. I was struck by the ease of the conversation, comfortable with the dialogue. There just seems to be an aura of receptivity, regardless of who is commenting or asking the questions. And so it's been a real good experience for me. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Great, thank you, Doyle. Gail?
I concur with everything that's been said, and I don't really have anything new to add. I would emphasize a few of the points that have been said so far, particularly about this being a great vehicle to learn more about the context in which each of us will be trying to learn this technique. But other than that, I don't have anything new to add. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Gail. Ken?
Ditto from much of what has been said. I'd like to actually, in terms of what has been done well, in terms of what I'd like to see, well, I'd love to see more people talking. I'd like to see us maybe getting a little deeper into the skill set for action learning coaches, and also to talk a little bit about how, if we're actually hiring coaches, to talk a little bit about the quality side, how we ensure that they're actually doing what we say we're going to be doing.
Yeah, I suspect that there sounds like, I mean, there's interest on so many different dimensions of this that we might want to host additional conversations, you know, that are connected to this, but not quite the same as if you are the coach. But yeah, I'm right with you. It'll be interesting conversation also. Thank you. Magda?
I think the way that we tolerated the imperfection of technology and then came and mastered it was a good exercise in learning together and overcoming frustration. And what I'd hope us to do differently is more what we do next, and I want to echo Cynthia, that we don't see this as point-in-time learning, but that we really see this as continuous connection, and to use the Ning and to pick up the phone and to be active learners in between times so that it sticks.
Good, thank you. Raquel?
Ditto. I guess one thing I would add is that I really felt like people were very willing to engage and wrestle with the application to our context, and that reflected that people also did kind of the pre-work, which made it richer.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I know we're at our time, but I want to just ask, was there anyone who had a question that we could have thrown out that you might want to share, just so that we can think about what kinds of questions a coach might ask? Okay, well, we will practice generating questions each time we do this, and I know it's a skill I need to build, so let's learn from each other. There's one last thing I'd like to talk about, and that's the difficulty in getting meeting times that meet all of our calendars. All very busy people, so I apologize at how long it takes to set up the meetings. I did send out the doodle request in the emails, and I have a dilemma. There never seems to be a time where everyone can meet. So this is the question I pose to you. I can pick a time where almost everyone can meet, and that's the time, and unfortunately, the people who can't meet that time would need to listen to the archived audio tape, or I can offer 2 times, 2 discussions, and split the group up, 5 people on one and 6 on another. Does anyone have a strong?
Yeah, Doyle, I'd say as far as I'm concerned, there'll probably be times when I can't make it, but I'm going to strive to move my schedule around. Go ahead and set a time. I hate the idea of splitting the group up.
Okay. Anyone else?
This is Gail. My thought was if you do split the group up, I would try to be on both calls anyway, because I think the information would be so helpful to me.
I agree.
Yeah.
Don, are you willing to do that? That's twice as much work for you.
That's okay. I'm learning what works here, you know, and I feel bad if someone can't attend, but I know it does make the group much smaller, you know, if it's split up. So unless someone like Gail attends both, if she's able.
If I can, yeah.
May I suggest that we experiment?
Okay.
As opposed to saying it's always one way or another.
Okay.
Because I hear the tension between inclusion and then group coherence.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that you should determine what the critical mass is and if that really works. And if you feel like it just ain't working and it would do better if we did 2 of them, I would leave that in your discretion.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I apologize for not anticipating or hoping that it would all work out. But unless I ask you for every minute of your day for several weeks, it's been a little difficult to find a time. Okay, well, I will send out an email as to on the next 2 dates or the next 2 meetings. Is there any burning thoughts someone has before we end our discussion?
You know, Donna, the only thing on that I'm wondering is I like keeping the group together, you picking some dates. What if with the folks that can't do it for whatever reason, there's out of 2 sessions you might do sort of a makeup kind of thing where you cover some things that have been discussed and it's a abbreviated thing, but there can be some questions asked and that sort of thing. I don't know if that would be too difficult for you, but keep a core group together and then, you know, every once in a while a little bit of a makeup on something that if someone's missed an awful lot.
I'm actually doing that with Michelle this time, you know, sort of a session by herself because I had to pick this date because it was the date that worked for most people. So that sounds reasonable. I will pick one date, send it out, and then please let me know if it doesn't work for you, and then we'll try to find another date for either you or whoever else can't make it for a mini session. Okay.
Yeah. Donna, this is Cynthia. I guess you know, when we were in St. Louis, we kind of discussed some ground rules about how we would work together and so forth. And I guess in my mind, I almost feel like it's a requirement that you be on the calls, or if you can't be on the calls, that you go back and listen to the archive. Otherwise, we're going to just, you know how frustrating it is when somebody comes on the second call and they missed the first one and they want to talk about the same things we did last time, you know?
Yeah, I would definitely, sorry, I sort of had that assumption in my mind. So anyone who's missing the call would definitely need to listen to the archived audio tape before I had a little mini session. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. We do want to stick with what you agreed to. So good. Okay, well, thank you so much. This is exciting for me, and I appreciate the learning circle we have here.
This is Erin. Just real quick before we all hang up, I'm going to be sending the link with this recording, and I'm not sure if we can make it password protected or private somehow, but I guess we'll just have an understanding as a group that we won't share it with anyone, and because I know, Donna, that you wanted to keep it very private just among our group. So, but I'll send that out, and we'll just make sure not to pass that on to anyone. You know, save the link somehow and then delete it from the email or something. I don't know, just to keep it private among our group.
Thank you. I think that's what we all agreed to in St. Louis. And again, Erin, Cynthia, thank you for helping set this webinar up. Appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, everyone, have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.